Thoughtful Connections, a memory care podcast, aims to provide general information and insights about dementia and related topics. The content shared is not intended to be medical advice or a substitute for professional medical or clinical guidance. The purpose or goal of this podcast series is to help inform and educate family members considering memory care for a loved one. With us, as always, is Elizabeth Thompson, Arrow Senior Living Regional Director of Memory Care.
Hello, Elizabeth, and welcome back to the first episode of Season 3 of Thoughtful Connections.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It's good to see you again.
Well, thank you. Now, did you have a nice physical break away from me?
Much needed. Yes.
So did you miss me at all?
Maybe just a little bit.
All right, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Well, anyway, it's good to be back together so we can do some bantering and so we can share stories and as well as provide quality information to our listeners and our viewers.
Sounds good.
So we have an interesting topic today. It is genetics and dementia.
Yes.
So, we hear some questions all the time. A couple of them are this. Said, my mom had Alzheimer's. Does that mean I will too? That's one of them. Or another one is, since my grandfather had dementia, am I destined to follow the same path? Now these questions they're deeply personal.
Yes.
And they come from a place of love, as well as fear, and as well as hope. All three of those, I think, come into play there.
So the truth is, genetics do play a role in dementia, but they're only part of the story.
So what does it mean for those of us, even like myself, with a family history of dementia? Can you bring us all together? Give us the big picture of what this means.
Sure. So dementia isn't one single disease. We talk about it being an umbrella term, and under that fall many different types. But it's an umbrella term for conditions that affect memory, thinking, and daily living. The most common type is Alzheimer's. That's the one that we hear the most about. But we also have vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, frontotemporal lobe dementia. Each one has its own risk and factors, including genetic influences.
Okay, all right. So how do genes affect dementia? And are there different types of these genes?
There are two major ways that genes affect dementia. There are risk genes, which increase the likelihood of developing dementia, but don't always guarantee it. And then there are deterministic genes, which directly cause the disease, almost always leading to a dementia diagnosis, especially if inherited.
Okay, all right.
A well-known example of that is APO4E4 gene. If you have one copy, your risk for Alzheimer's goes up. If you have two, your risk is even higher. But it's not a crystal ball. Many people with the APOE-E4 gene never develop Alzheimer's. And many people without it, they still do get it.
Now, let me stop you there just a second. When you say one copy, you mean as in inherited from one parent? And two copies would get it from both parents?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead.
Right. So I once spoke to a woman whose mother and grandmother both had Alzheimer's. She decided to get genetic testing and found out that she had the APOE-E4 gene. At first, she felt devastated, which, any of us would.
Sure.
But after she talked to a genetic counselor, she realized that it wasn't a guarantee that she would end up with dementia. It was motivation. So she began exercising regularly. She joined a book club to keep her brain engaged, doing brain games, and made changes to her diet. And 10 years later, she's still sharp and high functioning and thriving. Her genes raised her risk, but her choices reshaped her future.
Is there any study that shows, what percentage of people, that have this particular gene that end up getting dementia? Have you seen any studies on that?
There have been some studies in very rare cases. Dementia really is in the genes. For example, familial Alzheimer's disease is caused by mutations in genes like APP, PSEN1, and PSEN2. These are deterministic genes that we talked about. If you inherit one, it almost always leads to Alzheimer's, but often at a younger age, 40s or 50s, that younger onset. Families with this form often see multiple generations affected, but it's earlier in life. So I remember hearing the story about a man named Mark who lost his father and aunt to early onset Alzheimer's in their 50s. When he got tested, he did find out that he carried that gene, the PSEN1 mutation. He knew his future would likely mirror his father's. While that can be very heartbreaking, that knowledge also inspired him and encouraged him to plan for the future, spend intentional time with his kids, prepare financially, and then also contribute and be a part of different trials that may change outcomes for others.
So it sounds like that this particular individual made the very best out of the time that he had left.
Yeah.
He really not only took care of himself, his family, but also through these trials, maybe made a big difference for someone else in the future.
Right.
Yes, okay. So we've mainly been talking about Alzheimer's. So what about the other types of dementia as it relates to genetics?
So frontotemporal dementia, which is also called FTD, which is the one that Bruce Willis was recently diagnosed with, around 30 to 40% of cases run in families. That's still relatively low. I mean, it's not over 50, but mutations in genes like MAPT, GRN, and C9 or ORF72 are often involved. I once worked with a family who 3 siblings carried that gene, but only one developed symptoms. So again, we're looking at that 30 to 40%. The others are still healthy. So that just shows us how genes interact with each other. There's factors there that we don't fully understand yet. Then you have like vascular dementia, which is more of a blood flow dementia, and it's caused by, hardening of the arteries, as we used to call it. That can be linked to things like high blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, diabetes. Genetics play a role in how our blood vessels work, but lifestyle factors like diet, exercise, smoking, that tends to matter most in that type of dementia. And then Lewy body dementia, which we're hearing more of lately. The genetic connection isn't as strong, but certain variants like the GBA gene may increase your risk.
Okay. I'm going to back up just a second to the frontotemporal. And you're talking about the 3 siblings, and only one of the 3 got the dementia. Now, again, this is getting a little bit deep, but you're talking about mutations of the particular genes. Now, what causes the mutations of the genes to begin with? Is there any study on that, or do we know the answer to that?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that there are so many things that we don't understand about gene mutations, and that's why we look at that percentage, 30 to 40%. You've got 3 siblings. One starts with having symptoms at age 50. The other 2 to this day are still fine. I think there's just a lot we still don't know.
I just wonder, is environment, is that a factor that's causing the mutation? I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it is. I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility.
There's a lot of talk about environmental concerns and even what we eat. So I'm sure that does play a part. I can't say for sure.
Well,
But
and I'm sure that scientists right now, even today, are working on that, trying to figure out what's causing those mutations.
for sure.
I'm sure that's part of a study right now. So this leaves us with the idea that genetics are not destiny.
Right.
It sounds like, and so maybe we should think of our genes as cards that we are dealt in life. That you can't change the hand, but you can learn how to play it wisely. Is that a good way to describe it?
Absolutely. And it kind of depends on your outlook on life. Two sisters that I knew had very different approaches. Once they had done their mother had Alzheimer's, and one sister said, well, it's inevitable. I'm going to get it. This is the end. Just very negative, not having a positive outlook. And then the other sister said, I can't control my genes, but I can control my choices, and started, exercising and stayed active, managed her health. And years later, those two sisters have very different outcomes. And there's a lot to be said about laughter and joy in your life, promoting health and immune response. So,
attitude in a lot of things can make a big difference.
Be happy.
Be happy.
Be happy.
Be happy. Enjoy life.
That's right.
Take care of yourself. Eat well.
Yeah.
Stay away from the alcohol, Charlie. All those kinds of things.
I wasn't going to say it, but you did.
Okay, so let's talk about genetic testing. Okay, so should people get genetic testing? Tell me about your thoughts on that.
That's a very individual question. For people who have family members who got a diagnosis of dementia much older in life, I don't think that it's necessary. When you have family members who are getting those earlier diagnoses, the 40s and 50s, then it is something to consider. But everybody's different. Just like I was talking about, some people are more glass half full, some people are more glass half empty. Meeting with a genetic counselor can help to understand whether testing is appropriate and what that could mean for you.
So it sounds like, based on earlier discussion, if you've had family members in their 40s and 50s, it's likely probably genetic dementia, or that dementia is based somewhat with genetics.
Yes.
And so it would make sense then to get the genetic testing.
Correct.
Whereas, or if our loved ones are in their 70s, late 70s or 80s, and with the onset of dementia, the likelihood of it being genetic is probably less likely. Is that what you're saying?
That is true. But even with it being something that's genetic isn't a guarantee.
Mm-hmm. That as you have explained and demonstrated for us. So now then, we brought up the idea of genetic testing. So let me ask you this, and you may or may not know the answer. I just threw this one in on you. Yeah. You didn't even know about it. So is genetic testing costly?
So it can be. There are genetic testings that you can do through the mail, and those are sometimes only around $100, but they can go up way over $1,000. It really just depends. Adding that genetic counselor is going to cost more money, so they can be costly.
Okay. So is this something that is normally covered by insurance?
Good question. Some insurances do, some insurances don't. Some are based on, does the doctor deem it necessary for you to get that genetic testing, which I feel like they would be more likely to deem it necessary if there was that earlier onset.
If you had the family history.
Right. But now if they're older, if your family members that had dementia were older when they received that diagnosis, they might not pay for it. So some do, some don't. It's best to check with your insurance company before you do any of this to see what they pay for, and even if the genetic counselor is included in that, because that's another expense.
Sounds like anything else, you have to convince them that you need it before they'll pay for it. Exactly.
And, I think if you're going to go to the lengths of getting the genetic testing, a genetic counselor is a must, because they're going to be able to help you evaluate what your genes are saying and how to prep and plan for the future.
Instead of you trying to figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
Which you probably wouldn't know what the hell they'd test that anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the takeaway that I have from today's discussion. I've got that genes may load the gun, but environment and lifestyle often pull the trigger. Is that right?
That's very true.
And so you can't change your DNA, but you can make choices that lower your risk and strengthen your brain.
Very good.
All right. All right. Give me an A on that one.
That was beautifully said, Charlie.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have potential.
You do. I'm going to pat yourself on the back for that today. Yes, I would say if dementia runs in your family, which it runs in many families right now, we're seeing more and more dementia, let that be your fuel, not your fear. Start making better choices in your diet, exercise, have those good relationships with your family members and friends, and be social and be active, not only physically, but with your brain. Those things are going to truly matter in the outcome of your life.
And make good choices.
Yeah. Be happy.
Yeah. Be happy. Yeah. Like you.
Well, I try.
Most times.
Most of the time I am.
Well, Elizabeth, you bragged on me, and so I'm going to brag on you a little bit. For being out of practice. It's been several months since we've been together.
It has.
I think you did a great job of informing us all about genetics and dementia.
Well, thank you.
So I want to thank you for sharing your expertise.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Charlie. This is this one that was a hard one, because you've got all the letters and the genes.
Oh yeah, and you didn't fumble them up too bad.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
All right. And thank you all for sharing your time with us. At Arrow Senior Living, we believe in the power of a chuckle, maintaining a childlike sense of wonder, and defending the dignity of others. Until next time, this is Charlie Johnson with Arrow's Thoughtful Connections, a memory care podcast, wishing you fond memories filled with moments of joy. And remember, if you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia.
You can find Thoughtful Connections, a memory care podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts.